Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter, your host. Today is January the 22nd, 2025, and I am just grateful to be here. Hello to all of you that are watching us on our Nurse Shark Academy page on Facebook, or our Baxter Professional Services page on Facebook, or our YouTube channel, the Nurse Shark Academy YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. I want to start off with our affirmation for today. And this is from the You Are a Badass calendar by Jen Sincero. And it says, You are a badass. You're the author of your own life, not your parents, not society, not your partner, not your friends, not the bullies who called you Fatzilla in junior high. And the sooner you decide to write yourself a better script, the sooner you get to live a more awesome life. So that is our way of encouraging you today. So go out there and write your own script and build your awesome life. Okay, let's get started in the news because there is a lot to cover, and then we'll have some announcements at the end. So this is coming from Skilled Nursing News, and it says, whole different ball game. Trump's executive orders vision for first 100 days deemed positive for nursing homes. Among the myriad of executive orders signed by President Donald Trump on Inauguration Day Monday was one that freezes the new regulations. A welcome relief for nursing home providers, the executive order reflects the new Republican administration's overall preference for less regulation. However, it is worth noting that this executive order will not derail the staffing mandate, certainly not in the long term, since the freeze lasts only 60 days, presumably until some of Trump's nominees for various cabinet positions are confirmed. That said, the freeze on new regulations could have implications for newly introduced survey procedures, which are set to become effective in late February, as well as for transparency of ownership requirements, experts said. The prior administration's view of how they wanted to regulate the industry is part and parcel of the type of thing that, quote, the Trump administration is trying to put a stop to so that they can take a deeper look and get their nominations cleared through the Senate, said Steve LaForte, Casadia Healthcare's chief legal officer and executive vice president of corporate affairs. The industry is currently overburdened by regulation, and some of the rules need to be rolled back, something that this executive order on day one of the Trump administration has generated hope for. Leah Klush, executive director of the Alliance Training Center. We have a new administration with new executive orders that are immediately implemented, so it's a whole different ball game. However, the minimum staffing rule remains insulated from President Trump's executive order, not only because the mandate has been in effect since June 21st of last year, but also because portions of the rule, such as the facility assessments, were implemented beginning August 8th. The freeze doesn't apply to the staffing rule because it is beyond any of the contingencies in the enumerations of the freeze. This maintains the necessity of the main lawsuit. And that is why legal experts also share that if the industry wants to defeat the mandate, a legal victory over the lawsuit brought on by the American Healthcare Association and National Center for Assisted Living, Leading Edge, and several Texas providers is also important. So basically, even though there's a bit of a pause, it's not really when it comes to the staffing mandate. We'll see what happens. President Trump did ask to get confirmed Dr. Oz to become the next CMS chief. I have to say, not a big fan of Dr. Oz, but at least he has a medical degree to be over CMS, so that helps. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. And not to say that the others didn't. What I'm saying is that at least he picked someone that actually knows somewhat a little bit about healthcare as opposed to an accountant, um, you know, someone who owns a retail store or franchise. You know what I'm saying? So there you have it. I don't want to get too political on this because I don't really talk a lot about politics, but as it pertains to directly affecting healthcare, I do. But we'll see what happens. There's more to this story, so head on over to Skilled Nursing News to get the full story. Just wanted to share some of the highlights with you. All right, here's our next story. Okay. These are going to be some tough ones coming up, so just wanted to let you know. So, the former NICU nurse that has been accused of abusing her charges, her bond has been denied. A former NICU nurse charged with injuring premature babies was denied bond Monday morning. Aaron Stratman, 26 of Chesterfield, Virginia, is facing charges of malicious wounding, child abuse, neglect, and serious injury after a 2024 incident at Henrico Doctors Hospital. Stratman is a pediatric nurse, was placed on leave from the hospital due to the alleged incidents that happened late last year. A criminal complaint against Stratman says a 5-month-old boy was found with multiple leg and rib fractures in November of 2024. The complaint also says that there's video evidence of Stratman taking the baby by the legs and applying pressure. Ms. Stratman was observed to be placing her weight down on the legs of the boy. Ms. Stratman was observed then taking both legs and pushing them backwards to where the boy's feet were at his head. The complaint says that the baby appeared to be crying and in distress. Ms. Stratman was then observed moving the leg back and forth, to which it's observed that the leg to not be consistent with the non-fractured leg of the juvenile. So again, as I said, this is very tough to read, and tough to hear about. So just be aware, and I did give you that warning ahead of time. The judge also said the nature of her charges is very serious and concerning. So she was denied bond as a way to protect herself and the community until she gets a psychological evaluation to ensure she's stable enough to be released. And we believe, this is Henrico Commonwealth's attorney, Shannon Taylor, and we believe that the representations we made regarding the video, that there is evidence to show some of the intentional conduct that the Commonwealth believes is part of the probable cause for the charges that we have filed. Stratman's attorney says they are concerned for her safety, noting that she is not a flight risk. Okay. Law enforcement has indicated that they would help provide some security and provide for her safety. I mean, her family, they are not security people. They're just regular folks. But I have been in touch with law enforcement, and if we're fortunate enough to get a bond, then law enforcement assures me that they would assist her in being safe. Again, remembering that this is all allegations. She has not been found guilty in a court of law. But I'm just wondering about her safety. If they have psychological concerns about her, how safe would she be to be at home by herself? Is somebody going to be watching her 24/7? That's the question I have. So they were wondering if there, in the other cases that were filed, if there were going to be any charges. As of this time, we're not aware if there's any charges. Henrico's Doctors Hospital, so they implement more safety measures, including 2 new security systems, including cameras in each NICU room, allowing parents to view their babies 24 hours a day. Additional daily examinations of NICU babies led by neonatologists, and new unit-wide in-person safety training programs. Yeah, we'll see. So just a little update on that story. Just wanted to share that with you. Again, here's another disturbing story. So issuing a trigger warning for you here. It says employee who shot director of nursing in the face, charged with attempted murder. This is from nurse.org. It says a new employee at the South Dakota nursing home is alleged to have shot her director of nursing in the face following a disagreement during training. According to court papers obtained by local news, Carrie Ann Collins, a recent hire at Ventura Nursing Home in Millbranch, South Dakota, was undergoing training when the incident occurred. The details surrounding the shooting are still emerging, but initial reports suggest that Collins became disgruntled during the training process, leading to a confrontation with her supervisor that escalated to violence. The victim's injuries were not life-threatening. Collins is being held on a $250,000 bond and faces charges of first-degree attempted murder and aggravated assault. She could serve 25 years in prison and a $50,000 fine if convicted. Following the shooting, local law enforcement was called to the scene, and Collins was taken into custody. The supervisor, whose identity has not been disclosed, was rushed to a nearby hospital for treatment. Collins is now facing serious legal consequences for alleged actions. The case has been taken up by local district attorney's office, and Collins is expected to face multiple charges. So again, we have that story. I don't know what's causing this uptick in violence, but I'm going to say, I just, you know, yeah, we've got to do better. We got to do better. That's all I can say. All right. Now, here's another story that I came across. And this is another cautionary tale, I'm going to say, for nurses, nurses that are starting their business. Please make sure you do things in the appropriate way. Let's get into it. So, California nurse accused of selling opioids via social media apps to clients across the U.S. So, this was a story that came across. This is about from SACB.com news. And it says, a nurse practitioner with licenses registered in Stockton and New York, who allegedly sold opioids and other addictive drugs to clients around the country, is the subject of a civil lawsuit announced Monday by federal prosecutors in Sacramento. In the lawsuit last week in federal court, acting U.S. Attorney Michelle Beckwith said Joan Rubinger traveled the country dispensing oxycodone, Percocet, Xanax, Adderall, and other drugs to buyers who paid on Venmo or with cash. Using no physician as part of her practice and without examining any patients, and that is the issue, because you have to know whatever state that you're in, you have to be licensed properly in that state, and if that state requires a collaborating physician, there should be one on there, and you have to examine the patient. Why are you giving someone something you haven't examined? So this is where I'm bringing this up, because a lot of times they get caught up into these things. Here's what it says. So, using no physician as part of her practice and without examining any patients, she issued at least 900 prescriptions from 2019 to 2024, often communicating with buyers via text message or on the app Telegram. So that's another problem. Rubinger traveled from city to city, providing a range of services from intravenous flushes to prescriptions for controlled substances, Beckwith said Monday in a statement. Intravenous flushes involve the injection of saline solutions into a vein in order to keep it open. So I have many questions about that. Okay, but let's go on. Rubinger's practice consisted of herself, a personal assistant, and a billing manager. A phone number listed for Rubinger was not answered on Monday, and she did not immediately respond to requests for comment left in a message there. Federal court documents did not list an attorney for her, but records in both California and New York show a valid nursing license in her name. According to the complaint, Rubinger would send a menu of drug choices to clients, demanding payment up front. In one message, she said, quote, "Just like at McDonald's, you got to pay for your burger before they hand it to you," the complaint said. I'm just saying, like, what? Okay, so anyway, and it goes on to say, to minimize attention from law enforcement, Rubinger would issue prescriptions in the name of friends and family members of her customers, the complaint said. In one case, a woman went to a regular doctor seeking legitimate pain medication, only to find that her file had been flagged for overprescription after Rubinger used her name to provide drugs to the woman's husband without her knowledge. The lawsuit is seeking civil penalties against Rubinger and asking the court to prohibit her from selling controlled substances. That's only the beginning, because I can guarantee you that there will be criminal charges filed against her eventually, and they'll probably be revoking her license. Like, don't do stuff like that, y'all. This is how you get yourself into trouble. Don't. And I wonder about the assistant that worked with her and the billing. What were they billing? This is where I had questions, because I'm reading this and I'm thinking, was she billing their insurance company? Because that could be fraud. You see, there's other charges that could possibly coming up here. Who was she billing? So those are all those questions that I have. And why were you traveling across the country doing all that? Doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of questions. So I think there's a lot of things that are left out of the story that we'll probably hear about as a lawsuit progresses. But that's just questionable. Okay. All right. Well, get on that note, let's just take a brief break and then we'll get back to it. For basic life support CPR classes, teachers, do you need to get your CPR requirement completed for your certification renewal? Nursing students, want to get a jump start on preparing for clinicals? Healthcare workers, do you need to renew your certification for your employer? Baxter Professional Services Health Education has what you need. Friends and Family CPR is available for anyone who wants to learn. Register today at Baxter Professional Services HealthEducation.com. All right, let's get into our next story. And so let's get into this one. Okay. All right. These are some heavy stories today. So a lawsuit. Nurse allegedly essayed a paraplegic patient. Alina Health didn't do enough. A Minnesota Department of Health report that substantiates allegations of maltreatment states Alina Health gave her different patients after the initial complaint. So I know a lot of times I think, must have been a guy. No. And this is why I'm bringing this up. Because this happens to men too. Let's hear it. So a horrible car crash the night before his high school graduation in 1999 changed life forever for Patrick from St. Paul. He was left paralyzed from the chest down, and for the last several years, he had been bedridden with worsening health. By any definition, he is a vulnerable person, said attorney Paul Applebaum. He has horrendous pressure wounds, which he's heavily medicated for. The isolation, the heavy pain he's in, all of that makes him a vulnerable adult under the state statutes. Okay. So Patrick's attorney, Megan Curtis, and Applebaum say in 2022, 26-year-old Kelsey Fulweller, a home health nurse with Alina, began providing his care. Within a couple of months, text messages included in the lawsuit, they showed that Fulweller started getting personal. Writing, "Is it appropriate to open up about your relationship status to a patient?" she initially wrote. And soon after, the messages detailed the nurse and the patient's kissing and explicit contact during her visits. She initiated the personal relationship, she blurred the boundaries, and then she led him into this romantic relationship. And she's in a position of power and authority over him as his nurse. And that is the point that I want to make. You have to be very careful in these situations, initiating these relationships. Listen to me. Don't do it. Protect your license. It's those blurring of the boundaries. It's the initial opening up about your personal life and all this kind of stuff and getting too personal. That can lead you down that road. And I've taught training classes on this very thing about blurring those ethical boundaries. And so this is why I'm reporting on this story, because I have a lot of new nurses, new grads who watch this show. And I don't want y'all to end up on the front page of some newspaper. Listen, I have seen this with my own eyes. I've worked in some places where there were some staff members who got too personal and too close to some of their patients, and they ended up going to prison, being assaulted themselves, stalked. It did not end well for some of these people. So whenever I see this, I want to bring this up because, again, I have a lot of new grads and people that are new to the healthcare industry and CNAs that watch this show. And I want you to understand that this is not good because you are in that position of power as a person who's taking care of them. This man can't get up and take care of himself. So, yes, that puts you in that position of power. But let's get back to the story. It says Patrick is now suing Fullweiler and Alina Home Health for the assault, medical malpractice, and negligence. A Minnesota Health Department report that substantiates the allegations reveals that Alina received a complaint and that Patrick told them about the inappropriate romantic relationship. But the report says Alina reassigned Fullweiler while she continued seeing other patients for another 7 months. So then that becomes a question because in my mind, you have to know that's already abuse. What was happening here? So anyway, so after the lawsuit, Fullweiler resigned. The State Board of Nursing suspended her nursing license for 2 years, but Patrick's attorney said Alina should have done more. The internal people who were supposed to monitor these things and take action virtually ignored it. Fullweiler's attorney said that her client has denied the claims in the lawsuit and has no comment for the story. In the court filing, Fullweiler said after Patrick and I became acquainted in the course of our professional contact, Patrick and I developed an outside work hours friendship discussing mutual interests. See, this is where I'm telling you, this is where it gets. It said after hours friendship, okay? Discussing mutual interests, including television shows, movies, music, etc. over the course of months. After months, he expressed interest, romantic interest in me. With regard to any sexual contact, on advice of counsel, I plead the Fifth Amendment to remain silent. So again, I'm just going to say, don't do this. Don't do this. All right, let's move on. Gosh, this just seems like it's this case after case after case. All right, but here we go. This is from Richmond News 6. It says Doctor at Colonial Heights Nursing Home charged a new case accused of lack of oversight of patient care. This goes back to that nursing home facility where they had a lot of issues. So it says nursing home center was connected in a former resident's death. Let me go back real quick. Let me check this out because I want to make sure I get the correct story. So I hate it when I try to bring in something and then it doesn't come out like I want it to. So anyway, give me 1 second. And I'll go back to that one and see if we can find it. If not, then we'll move on to the next one. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next story, and I'll come back to that. But anyway, I say this because I try to protect healthcare workers. I bring these stories out not just because it's sensational and all that stuff. I want healthcare workers to know, don't do this thing. This is where you get caught up. Here it is, WTBR.com. All right. Says new allegations have surfaced surrounding Colonial Heights. This is where I want to talk about it because it's back to that Colonial Heights investigation. There we go. And we talked about them before. Colonial Heights Nursing Home at the center of an elder abuse investigation. Less than 1 month after 18 employees of Colonial Heights Rehabilitation and Nursing Center were arrested in connection to a former resident's death, a doctor at the facility is now charged with elder abuse involving a separate incident and different victim. Police arrested Gohar Abbasi on January 16th for what prosecutors called, quote, a lack of oversight of patient care pertaining to an offense that occurred on January the 11th. This is why I say document. Anyway, court documents obtained by CBS 6 revealed Colonial Heights police received numerous calls between January 12th and January 14th about a man wandering city streets and dumping waste out of a colostomy bag. The man reportedly could barely walk, was stumbling, if not falling down, and he had a very unsteady gait. A criminal complaint showed the man had recently suffered multiple fractures and had a medical condition that put him at high risk of infection. If his colostomy bags, which are required to be cleaned and drained hourly and daily, were not properly taken care of, he could die, according to the complaint. Further, the document said a VCU psychologist who had recently evaluated the man declared him not competent and unable to make medical decisions by himself. Okay, it's going to be very important. VCU Medical Center turned over all rights to the man's brother to sign off on surgeries that were performed before the man's arrival at Colonial Heights Rehabilitation and Nursing Center. But according to the complaint, when a detective talked to Dr. Abbasi about this case, he stated that the man, quote, was of sound mind and signed himself out of the facility against medical advice. The detective alleged Abbasi, quote, never physically saw the victim to make this determination. Prosecutors said Abbasi was not at the facility full time. While Abbasi reportedly said the man should be taken to a hospital for evaluation, he, quote, never attempted to contact the police department nor swore out a medical emergency custody order for the man, the criminal complaint complained. A medical emergency custody order is a legal process available to physicians to ensure people who refuse medical care can get treatment that they need. So because this man was deemed not able to make his own medical decisions, then he supposedly should have been a legal device created so that they could go pick him up and take him to the emergency room. The complaint alleged Abbasi did not know what a medical emergency custody order was, despite being a doctor for 30 years. Part of me is really not surprised by that, because if you've not had to, because I'm working in psychiatric care, I'm very familiar with these things. But a lot of people are not. If they're not working in the hospitals, they may not know about these things, or there's a lot of misinformation about how to do it and what to do. And so I'm not surprised that a lot of family practice doctors don't know about this. So they may have a concept of it, but there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about that. So I understand that why. Colonial Heights prosecutor Noel Nashasaki said Abbasi's negligence placed the victim at risk of injury or death. So again, this is why I bring this up. Guys, they're going after medical staff, not just civilly now. It's criminal. You have to be so careful in what you do. It's criminal now. According to the complaint, Colonial Heights Police secured its own emergency custody order for the victim. As of January 16th, the man was still undergoing medical treatment and was not clear to go to a mental health facility. Colonial Heights Rehabilitation and Nursing Center declined to respond to the allegations, citing the pending investigation. Abbasi was granted a $2,500 bond, and prosecutors plan to file a bond modification motion that would prevent Abbasi from practicing medicine and ban him from the facility. Court records filed by Abbasi's defense attorney, Kevin Calhoun, indicated that he has run his own private medical practice for 25 years and was the medical director at Riverside Regional Jail for over 10 years. When asked for a response to the charge against Abbasi, Calhoun declined to comment. So I'm sounding the alarm. I'm like, it's difficult out here in medicine. Protect yourself, okay? Protect yourself. That's all I can say. So that's a little bit more of what's happening with Colonial Heights. Unfortunately, they are still in the news. All right. Here's another story. It says Rhode Island nurse's license suspended amid allegations of falsifying records. And this is another thing that I want to bring out. Don't do some of these things that I see people do. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Okay, this is WJR, and it says a nurse's license is suspended as Rhode Island health officials accuse her of falsifying a patient's medication orders. The Rhode Island Department of Health suspension notice claims in November Amelinda Dubois, wrote an order for insulin Lispro despite a nurse practitioner discontinuing the medication for the patient. Okay? So this is why working the floor as an RN, I don't like to take verbal orders. This is another reason why, as an NP, I don't like to give verbal orders. I like to write my own orders as much as I can. When I was working in long-term care, I typically wrote my own orders. The only time I would do verbals when it was after hours, it was on the phone, and you're supposed to read back and verify if these things happen. And yeah. Anyway, but let's get into it. So the suspension states, after careful consideration and further investigation by RIDOH, the director has determined that evidence exists indicating respondents' continuation in practice would constitute an immediate danger to the public. The notice further claims Dubois shredded the instructions from the nurse practitioner the next day and wrote out an order for the medication backdated to the previous day, which stated it was ordered by the nurse practitioner, though investigators say it was not. I don't understand. I don't understand what's happened. The notice states that Dubois admitted to a supervisor that she shredded the nurse practitioner's order, claiming the order was wrong. Oh my gosh. So she took it upon herself to change an order because she didn't agree with it. That's not how you do that. If you think that an order is wrong or there's something wrong, you hold the medication, you immediately call the provider and give them your concerns and make sure that this is what they were intended to do. Wow. The notice states that it received a complaint alleging that the respondent falsely transcribed an order and falsified documentation in the medical record. Dubois had previously been placed on probation in May over allegations involving procedures for the administration of a narcotic, according to suspension document. This is not the first time. A hearing in front of the Board of Nurse Registration and Nursing Education is scheduled for January 27th. So this is why I bring it up. I say, don't be out here doing stuff like you're in the wild. No. If the order was written and you disagree with the order, you call the provider and say, I have a question about this order. You do not shred it and take it upon yourself to write a new order. She was acting out of her scope of practice. I am not surprised. The outcome of this. Yeah, I'm like, what is going on here? Don't do those things. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say except we're going to go ahead and take a brief break, and then we're going to get back to it. Bullying, poor staffing, stagnant wages, no work-life balance. Stop being eaten alive. Find your joy, strength, and happiness. Become the leader you are always meant to be. Nurse entrepreneurs are using their skills to launch successful businesses every day. Make your dreams come true. Join the Nurse Shark Academy and come feel the sun at the nursesharkacademy.biz. All right. Here's another news story. Here we go. This is from the Des Moines Register, and it says Unity Point nurses accuse health system of trying to bust up bid to form a union. Unity Point health nurses in Des Moines have filed complaints with federal labor officials against the health system, accusing hospital administrators of trying to illegally discourage their union efforts. Nurses at the 4 Unity Point Health hospitals in Des Moines have announced their intention to organize a union through the Teamsters Local 990 because of the discontent over nurses' compensation and working conditions. Staff behind the union effort say hospital policies on pay has hurt nurse recruitment and retention, resulting in staff shortages that they contend has, in turn, threatened to compromise patient safety. Nurses are still collecting the signatures required to trigger a vote to form the union. If collective bargaining with the health system is ultimately successful, organizers say the union would represent about 1,550 nurses at Iowa's Methodist Medical Center, Blank's Children's Hospital, Methodist West Hospital, and Iowa Lutheran Hospital. Organizing nurses told the Register that the health system has ramped up its efforts to discourage the union in recent weeks. Teamsters Local 90 filed 3 charges with the National Labor Relations Board against Unity Point Health last month, accusing hospital leadership of taking coercive actions to undermine their union efforts. The accusations say the health system maintained illegal and overwrought work rules, intimidated workers, and removed and destroyed union materials, said Tanner Fisher, a president and business agent for Teamsters Local 90. Teamsters declined to provide documentation of the charges, citing privacy concerns. But nurses describe instances of union organizing posters in staff break rooms being taken down and even torn up by management. They say staff who attempt to set up tables in public spaces of the hospital to spread the word about the union are met by arbitrary rules from leadership meant to infringe on the effort. In at least one case, nurses were threatened with being kicked off campus if they attempted to set up a table on hospital grounds. Federal law bans employers from interfering with, restraining, or coercing employees who are taking part in efforts to organize or join a labor organization. Sarah Brown, Unity Port's Health System Chief Nursing Officer, said, "We are aware of the recent charges filed by the Teamsters with the National Labor Board. We are confident that these charges are without merit and will be dismissed once reviewed by the NLRB." The health system has hired third-party consultants to hold informational sessions about unionizing the hospital nurses. These firms have worked with hospitals and other healthcare organizations across the country whose workforce is pursuing union efforts. So basically, they are hiring union busters. And this is what it says. But Fisher says these firms are union busters whose sole task is to deter nurses from organizing. Essentially, the union busters show up and they try to make nurses lose confidence in their initial goal, which is working together to try to improve their own working conditions. They will do anything from lie to people or just sow doubt and fear. Federal reports show one of the consulting firms, the Crossroads Group Labor Relations Consultants, charged $450 an hour in November to a New Hampshire hospital whose nurses were organizing. I'm just like, couldn't you just save money by paying the nurses more? I don't know. Anyway, go on. Another firm, C. Hunt Management Consulting, charged a Connecticut hospital $300 an hour to consult on, quote, a campaign work for union avoidance in 2022. Unity Point Health confirmed it has hired national labor relations experts, stating that their purpose is to help the system navigate its responsibility to, quote, ensure all nurses are fully informed about their rights, the law, and the potential impact of union representation. We know our nurses are facing pressure to make rush decisions about unionization that will have a significant impact on their professional lives. We believe it is our responsibility to ensure our nurses are fully informed about their rights, the law, and the potential impact of union representation. To assist in this educational effort, we have engaged experts in the NLRB elections process and union representation to provide guidance to our nurses on their rights, answer their questions, and help them make informed choices. Whitney Armstrong, a union organizer and a critical care nurse at Iowa Methodist Medical Center, said nurses are pursuing a union because there's little faith that hospital administrators will make the changes needed to address their ongoing challenges. She said many nurses have brought concerns to management over the years, yet little has been done to address them. We're doing this to make things better for our patients and make things better for our families, whereas the motivation on the other side is to continue putting money in their pockets. Morale among the nursing staff is at an all-time low, according to Unity Point nurses who spoke with the Register. They say recent policy changes made to reduce nurse compensation has prompted fears that more nurses will choose to leave the system. More nurses leave the bedside will further exacerbate staff shortages that have plagued the system for some time and raise questions on how the hospitals will be able to care for growing patient demands. Within the system, Armstrong said hospital leadership has created, quote, a constant system of asking nurses to do more with less. Is that not the same refrain I hear from everyone? They say recent policy changes. Yes, okay. So, and it says we want the hospital to be better staffed because we know that safe staffing saves lives. It isn't that there's a nursing shortage, but there's a shortage of nurses that are willing to do the work for lack of pay. That's really what this is about. It's about getting more nurses to the bedside so we can take care of our patients. So there's more to this story. So please head on over to the Des Moines Register and support these nurses in whatever their decision will be, whether they choose to unionize or not. But again, I think that we've come to this juncture in healthcare that there has to be some change. And a lot of times these entities are more focused on the bottom line than they are on patient care and the well being of their staff. All right, let's get to our last two articles. And I always like to end it with, if I can, a nurse making a difference. And I have two. All right, so I just happened on this article and I thought this is great to point out some of the wonderful things that nurses can do. And it says fire medical officer puts nursing skills to work in hometown. Make it a little bit bigger so I can see it. Don't judge me. I know I need my my readers here. All right, so it says this week's Up and Corner is Ashley Wolfgang, the fire medical officer, a nurse practitioner with the city of Sioux Falls. So they interviewed her, and she said she was born and raised in Sioux Falls. She says she's there because my family, we're raising our son here, and I want to stay close to family. I also love this town and don't see myself ever leaving my hometown. Sioux Falls offers a big city feel while also being small enough to not be overwhelming. She said, what's your favorite thing to do about her job? The variety it has to offer. Each day is unknown. And with this being a new position, I can make this job what I want and what the firefighters want and need. I'm heavily focusing on the health and wellness of the firefighters so they can continue to serve the community. What's one business you'd like to see Sioux Falls have that isn't here now? She said that's a common answer, but she wanted a Trader Joe's. I thought that was interesting. Her favorite way to give back to the community is through serving the residents of the community in the emergency department. Aside from that, I really enjoy supporting the local businesses. I enjoy walking downtown and finding local businesses there. The Downtown Burger Battle is a national holiday in our household. So what's something that surprised to learn about you? I'm keeping my registered nurse license, and I work as a nurse in the emergency department on some weekends and evenings. My primary focus is my job at Sioux Falls at the fire medical officer, but I really enjoy my work as a nurse in the ED, and I love serving the community that way. And it says, if you had $1 million to start a business, what kind of business would it be? And she says, this is the hardest question for me to answer. I would have to say something that involves animals and coffee and something family oriented that would be fun for all ages. I can't narrow that idea down anymore, but that would be the concept of it. So I think that's awesome. I bring that up because a lot of people don't know that nurses can be medical officers. And yes, they can. Yes, we can. So I think that's great. And so I want to share that with you. And then our last article, and Nurse Making a Difference, is the late Nancy Lieutenant Colon. I hope I said that right. Who was the first Black woman in the Army Naval Corps, Army Nurse Corps, has died. Sorry. So I want to make sure I get that right. This is from ABC News. I want to share that. The first Black woman to join the U.S. Army Nurse Corps after the military was desegregated in the 1940s has died. She was 104. Nancy Lieutenant Colon, who retired as a major and died earlier this month at a New York nursing home, was remembered by relatives and friends for quietly breaking down racial barriers during her long military career. Known as Lefty, she was one of 6 siblings who served in the military, including a brother who was a famed Tuskegee Airman pilot. He was killed in a mid-air collision over Austria in 1945, according to the biography Lieutenant Cullen on the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated website. His remains have never been found. Her nephew, Chris Lieutenant, said she was an awesome person. She never created waves when she was doing all this first stuff, first that. She never made a big thing of it. It was just happening. After the military was desegregated in 1948, Lieutenant Colin, or I'm just going to call her Lefty so I don't continue to butcher her name, initially joined the all black 332nd Fighter Group as a nurse. She then joined the U.S. Air Force after the 332nd Fighter Group was disbanded, supporting the Korean and Vietnam Wars. She set up hospital wards in Japan, helped evacuate French legionnaires from Vietnam, and was on the first medical evacuation flight into Dien Bien Phu, where more than 70 years ago the French colonial army was defeated by Vietnamese troops. She retired as a chief nurse in 1965, according to the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated website. From there, she served as a school nurse at Amityville Memorial High School in New York from 1971 to 1984, known according to school district release for her line, "The Sky is the Limit." The Library Media Center has been named in her honor. She was also the first woman to elected to the presidency of the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, serving from 1989 to 1991. Chris Lefenant said she led the way and she kept all the doors open behind. She was just the first one, but then she made it whenever and wherever possible for someone else to follow behind. Suffolk County Legislator Jason Richburg, who presented Lefty with a proclamation in 2022, recalled her as being a firecracker. Said it was truly an honor to sit with her. She was unapologetically her, which was awesome. She was authentic. She was humble. She was direct in her wants and needs. She always told great stories of her time, her family. Richburg said he remembered that she wasn't one to highlight her significant accomplishments. She was humble about her history. She said, "I was doing my part." As much a hero she is to her family, she wanted everyone to know you can do more. Lefty was born in Goose Creek, South Carolina in 1920, one of 12 children. She was the granddaughter of a freed slave. Her family left the South for Amityville, New York in 1923, and that is where she died on January 8th. So she is our nurse making a difference, a legend. A legend. So that concludes our news for today. Let's get into some announcements. Okay. All right. So coming up, just letting you know, we've got some things coming to at the Nurse Shark Academy. I've got a couple of things happening, and also at Baxter Professional Services Health Education. So on the 29th, we do have a CPR class available. So if you need a CPR class, you can join us for that. If you need to renew your CPR class, I have a special class from 9 to 12. So you can go to Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com and sign up for your CPR class. If you need to get that renewal in, particularly nursing students, before you go to clinical, now's a good time to get that done. So sign up for that. And then also coming up on February the 1st, we'll be having our very first TB instructor course. So if you are already have your basic validation, if you've had it for 6 months and you are a licensed medical professional, this is a good time for you to get that in. We're having our TB instructor course that will be happening on February the 1st. So please sign up at Baxter Professional Services Health Education.com. And then we have another event that's coming up with the Nurse Shark Academy. And our next event, and we certainly will want to put that up. This is for nurses that are interested in starting their business, or maybe you're thinking about being a business owner as a nurse. You're curious about what's happening. We have our Break Free, the Nurse's Path to Entrepreneurship. That will be February the 8th. We have our webinar, Break Free, the Nurse's Path to Entrepreneurship, at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. Be sure to sign up for that as well. So we'll be having some more information coming up about these events that we'll have. Also, just a reminder, if you are local and you have a local event here in Anderson and Madison County or state of Indiana even, and you want to get invite people to your community event, please let me know. Obviously, I don't try to put a lot of political stuff on here, and it has to be something that is positive, family oriented, that type of thing. But I'll be happy to promote your event on the show and let people know what's happening in our local community. So, and I thank you, if I pronounce your name right, Marju, for your wonderful comments. Thank you for watching. You've been a great supporter. And I want to say thank you to those of you that are watching us on all of our channels and all of our platforms. We'll see you next week. If you know a nurse that's making a difference, please let me know so that I can highlight them on the show. And I will see you next week. All right. Have a great rest of your day.